Is discipline a dirty word? And how do you feel when you hear the word discipline? Today, I'm going to share how discipline can actually set you free, release you from decision fatigue, make you more productive, and how to reframe how you feel about the word discipline. This is part of my series on curating a joyful life after 50 that's happy, less toxic, and truly amazing. There's a playlist on the page. Make sure you grab it. So what comes to mind when you hear the word discipline? Do you see that stern teacher or boss or someone? Maybe it's multiple someones. Who and what comes to mind? I want you to write down your own definition of the word discipline and then look at that, observe it on the page and ask yourself, is that a positive or a negative definition? See, for me, discipline creates freedom as it releases me from decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is really just that overwhelming feeling that we can have sometimes having to make one more decision. And studies have shown that as the day stretches on, often we make less positive decisions because we're in that overwhelmed, tired, fatigued state. Now, there's been some research done. You can type this into ChatGPT or Google it about judges in the afternoon. And I'm talking about, judges that rule on cases. So it's been proven that judges tend to have a more negative sentencing slant for the people who are in front of them alleged with a crime, whatever that might be. It's been proven that having your court case in the morning can have a much more positive outcome than the afternoon because of that decision fatigue. Now, where this really comes into play is with food choices as well, because when we don't have a plan, it's quite often much easier to default to the fast food drive-through, Uber Eats, or grabbing something quick on the go out of the vending machine even that's filled with seed oils and high fructose corn syrup and truly that ultra-processed nightmare. It also can lead us to decision fatigue around working out or not working out. Because for me, habits really create freedom. Habits for me started with a morning routine and a walking routine and all of that. And so a big part of my morning routine is getting up and moving, stretching my body, yoga moves, using my rebounder, maybe on my vibration plate, something along those lines for at least 5 minutes just to get my body awake, the cortisol flowing, to remind myself it's time to be up, it's time to be alert, it's time to have all those body systems working. So my morning routine is a part of that. So movement, my daily thought download, which is the morning pages, essentially just free flow writing, getting everything out. And I've mentioned before, the morning pages comes from The Artist's Way. I highly recommend you get it and read it. And I'm doing a video next, actually, on what I've learned from The Artist's Way 4 years later of doing this program. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed. But a big part of the daily thought download, again, is the discipline to release yourself from thinking all of those negative thoughts throughout the day. So I start with my movement, my daily thought download, and then I make sure beyond just that morning stretch, I do my 5 for 5 for 5. I've referenced that. There's a playlist on functional movement, but I'm traveling right now. Here is one of my stretch bands, and here is my list with my index cards that are all different workouts. Again, this helps me not have decision fatigue. I can literally draw out a card, read what it says, and this is yoga, sun salutations and all of that, but I can literally pick out a card and I can go to work on my 5 for 5 for 5. Now, with that particular one that I showed, I could just pick 5 of those yoga moves, or I can go ahead and go through the entire thing. But the bottom line is, I know it's part of what I'm going to do. I just literally do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the Mel Robbins idea of when my mind starts saying, oh, I don't want to do that one. I just know that I can survive anything for 5 minutes. And 5 minutes a day is better than nothing. And again, part of the habit stacking, we begin to grow that. 5 minutes today, 5 minutes tomorrow, 5 minutes at 6 in the morning, 5 minutes at 10 in the morning, 5 minutes at noon, right after meals, or something like that. And pretty soon, you've done 30 minutes of exercise for the day. Then I also like to have an evening routine because that helps me become better disciplined to sleep better. And my evening routine, part of it is, again, the evening side of the morning pages where I literally just free flow write everything that comes to mind about the day. I'm specifically reflecting back on the day from start to finish. What was great? What would I like to improve on? What would I even like to have a do-over of? And then my final piece of that, of course, is planning for the next day. I love to plan everything the night before, so that releases me from waking up in the middle of the night and having that brain overload where I can't get back to sleep. And part of my planning for the next day is my food. What am I going to eat? How am I going to feed and fuel my body to the best that I can? What's on the calendar? And how do I need to factor that in? Am I going to a social event? Are we going to be eating out? How can I factor all of that in? So I have a food plan every single day, and it starts the night before. What's my productivity plan? Okay, what am I going to do in my business, in YouTube, to show up and be productive? What's my 5 for 5? How am I going to set myself up for positive movement throughout the day? And then what's on the calendar to do to be social? So I love that evening routine of planning, the discipline of sitting down, even for 10, 15 minutes. It doesn't take a lot once you build that habit muscle and start doing it. And the reality of it is, building those habit muscles, our goal is to create positive habits that crowd out those bad habits. So again, a 5-minute stretch in the morning for a week, just get up 5 minutes earlier, maybe 6. You don't even have to change. You've seen me doing workouts kind of in my PJs or my loungewear. I don't always get into gym clothes to do that. So you start with that 5-minute stretch, and then you start with 5 minutes of the morning pages. There's no right or wrong for any of this. The biggest thing is just to get started. And that pre-planning releases you to live, to enjoy, and to be productive the next day. Sure, flexibility matters, right? We all know that stuff comes up throughout the day that we're not planning for. But when you have a plan and you have to deviate from it, but you still stick to that plan of working on the next day and the next day, then it's very, very easy to pick back up when you do get derailed. Most of us know that we create habits, and even a week out of sync with doing those old habits can really mess you up for the future. That happens to me when I go on cruises or even on vacations. If I'm not still disciplined with what my intent is for the day, I will often find that it makes it harder to come back home and get back into the groove. And then my final tip, learn the art of saying no. This is a disciplined habit that can make all the difference in the world. I want you to grab a piece of paper and draw a circle on it, just like this. And then inside the circle, write what matters. And outside of it is everything else. And then I want you can write that at the top. I wrote it big just so you could see it, but I want you to begin to write down, what are your core values? What are those things that really truly mean something to you, that matter to you? And then everything else goes outside that circle. So when you're forced to make a decision, whether you're going to do something, whether you're going to invest in something, whatever it is, you can simply look at that and ask yourself, does this fit into my core values? Does this move me closer to living that joyful life that I desire, or does it move me further away? Now, the reality of it is sometimes we're going to be forced to do those things that don't fit into our value system. But when we have that plotted and planned out and we understand what matters to us, it makes it much easier to learn the art of saying no. So how does discipline fit in for you? Drop it in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed. Watch this next video coming up and grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com. I'm Jackie Elmer. Thanks for spending this time with me.